So I thought I'd do a little video about how I create skills in Claude. So the first thing I do is I do my deep research. So what I'm trying to do today is I'm trying to write a skill that when an agent has it, it knows what our style is, so it always writes in the correct language. So the first thing I do is deep research. So for Claude, I'm just going to make sure I've got the research on. And then I'm going to copy that prompt and I'm going to put it into ChatGPT, making sure that I use deep research, Grok, Gemini, Perplexity, all the different LLMs, and I'm going to get all the information available. So that's going to be my deep research. So I'll come back to that. So the next step is to go to NotebookLM and create a new notebook. And this is where you're going to upload all of your deep research that you found. So export to PDF. And then just up here, add sources. Okay. And then you will do that for all of the ones as they come back. So now I've uploaded all of the different sources. So this one you can just rename. Okay, so you've got all your sources there. So the first thing to do is just double check if there's any conflicting information. Because each of these LLMs, they're all going to be using different sources. So by asking if there's any conflicting information, you can investigate how you want to change that. Okay, so the use of human cutesy language. So let's have a look at those sources. So that's Grok. Yeah, so Grok is pro-humor, unsurprisingly, where Neil Norman is anti-human, so we could anti-human. So when we actually come to make our skills, we can put specific rules in for those things. So we need to be aware of that. Okay, so the thing I would recommend doing is make yourself an audio overview. So definitely a deep dive. I'm going to have it as long, and I'm going to have it teach me about the content in the sources. I want to understand what makes a great error message. So I like a podcast because I can listen to it while I'm doing other things, but there's also different ways. So you can do video, you can ask it questions, there's like quizzes, so you can really interrogate the data. So I've just listened to the podcast, and as I was listening to the podcast, I was just making notes of the different things that it mentioned. So I've got all of the different things that the podcast was talking about. So I've got a written record of those as well, so I can go over those. The other thing that I like to say is look through the information. Is there anything else that I need to be aware of? So is there anything that the podcast didn't cover? And it's given me some more things to be aware of. So now I'm at a stage where I can I've done my research. I'm happy that I understand it, and then you can start making the skills. So I use Claude Code for this. However, you can use the web to do it. So we've already got a skill called Vox Pop Me Copywriting, which already has our tone and everything in it. So we can link our skills to that. So I've asked Claude to find that skill and load it up. I've also, because I'm using Claude Code, I've asked it to create another branch. So all the information will be new on this branch. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building two skills. We're going to be building one for when the developers are getting Claude to build new components and error messages, and one for a specific agent. So it requires two different skills. So now that it's got its initial skill, that this is when we're going to come to testing it. Let's do the first skill. So the first thing to do would be to read through it yourself. And it's given us this 7 principles that govern error message. So empathy first, solution second. So already, because I've done that research and I've been listening and reading about error messages, I know this section isn't correct, because what we should be using is this framework: problem, impact, solution. And at the moment, it isn't worded that way. So what I can do is I can take this information and rules for copy. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to Claude Code and say, please rewrite the skill using this framework. And then you really should give it the framework. Thank you, Claude. And it will go through and it will rewrite everything again. And then you'll reread it and check. So that's the stage that I'm going to be at the moment, just rereading it and using my own knowledge to update the skill. So after you're reading through the skills and you're happy with what you see, what I would recommend is ask it for specific examples. So I asked for a list of agent-specific errors, and then I asked for an example for each of them. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to be testing each of what it recommended in NotebookLM. So I put that in and it gave me some feedback. And it gave us a better example. So what I can do now is I can say feedback for tool failure. There we go. So that's had that one. Okay. So say rewrite the full wording. So basically I want it to rerun that again. I hate M dashes. I am actually going to ask them again. There we go. So we've got better examples. So it's saying what the issue is, why it's happened, and the solution. So let's check the new improved one. And the good thing about this is just using the data that we've uploaded. So we know it's based on the UX standards. Perfect. Okay, and then we'll just go through all the other error messages. So after we have gone through all of the different examples and given feedback to Claude, so just copying into Claude the feedback from the research repo, then what I like to do is tell it I've got a research repo and ask if it has any questions, and just see if it has any more information in the research repo. So let's copy that in. Okay, and then we can put that into Claude. And then I'll repeat the same for these questions and then ask if it has any more questions. So the final thing that I like to do is upload the full skill as a source and then just ask my research repo just to give it a final check to see if there's anything that's missing. So I really liked that it suggested we should be putting in a line about prevention before recovery. So the system is going to attempt to guide the user before they experience an error. And I liked this bit about the adaptive validation messaging. So it's adaptive depending on what the user is doing. Whereas the GDPR rules, I think thought was a bit overkill, so we didn't include those. So what I did is I gave those final feedbacks to Claude, and then here we have the final skill. So you give it a final read through, and then what I'll be doing is pushing that up and sharing that with the devs to add to the agent. So in future, when our agent needs to output an error message, it has all these rules that it will be able to follow.